feeling good today. There's something in the air. Maybe it's three-eye atlas, or maybe it's just that it's rainy outside and it's warm inside. I don't know, something shifted. Something's shifting for me. I think partly it's that I feel I've been making some personal progress with aligning myself with my own inner compass. With letting go of what's going on in the world. And really practicing what I preach. And that is having a daily practice where I'm tuning into my inner guidance. And I'm making that and the information that I receive, the feeling, the attunement that I receive from that, more important than what's going on in the world. This is really the capability that we have, where we decide what tone, what is setting the tone in our life. We don't have to be subject to the weather, the news, what's going on. We do get to decide where our attention goes. And I think that even if there's no magical effect there's no law of attraction, I do believe that our thoughts affect reality, and that there may be an infinite number of universes, and that we can quantum jump into other timelines. But even if that's not true, our well-being is dictated by the thoughts that we're thinking. Do we feel anxious, or do we feel relaxed and at ease? Are we scattered in the past, in the future, where we should be, where what we didn't do? Or are we actually living our life, being in the present? And this is something that requires practice and discipline. However, I think that once people experience it, it becomes a much easier choice, because it's compelling. The state of embodiment, the well-being that comes from being in the now, being present, it's just much more satisfying. It's just much more enjoyable. And I've suggested that people learn to practice meditation. But if that's difficult for people, they find that difficult, my suggestion is to hire a hypnotherapist and work with a hypnotherapist. And even in just learning how to relax, if you went to a hypnotherapist and said, help me learn how to relax, help me to get into a better frame of mind, they'll be able to do that easily, because that is the basic technique in hypnosis, is getting a person into a very similar state as in meditation, where the body is deeply relaxed, the nervous system is deeply relaxed, but the mind is awake. And it's not just awake, it's focused. It's not jumping all around, thinking about what it should be doing, what's coming next. It's focused on something specific. And when the mind focuses like that, there is a sensation of embodiment, of presence, of clarity, depending on what the focus is. If the focus is on something like a memory, then maybe it's not so embodying. But if there's a focus on the breath or the focus on relaxation, there is a profound feeling of pleasure in the body. That focused awareness in the present is very enjoyable. I am trained as a hypnotherapist, and I have done some work as a hypnotherapist. The reason I didn't become exclusively a hypnotherapist is because I was also studying somatic therapy at the time, and my intention was to combine the two, which I have done some of. Part of me implementing that as a career was to do with difficulties that I was experiencing during the pandemic, where things were very conflicted and broken, and our faith in everything was very much disturbed. And I was really disturbed by that, because I was not somebody that complied. And so I was treated as an outcast. And that really kind of triggered previous feelings of that for me. But I've been using hypnosis techniques on myself. I've been using meditation on myself. I've been using meditation, and it has helped me. One of the things that goes along with hypnosis is affirmation. So hypnosis, when facilitated by somebody else, is not mind control. It's merely the person is helping you to be in a certain state. So they are giving you statements very similar to affirmations, such as, you're safe, you can relax, there's nothing you need to do right now. Often when we just say lay down on the couch to relax, our mind will just float and drift as our body relaxes, and our consciousness will sublimate and diminish as far as our focus in the world. So what I'm saying is, we go to sleep. Our conscious awareness diminishes. Our attunement is to other states of awareness, deeper states of awareness. And because we're not familiar with those states, we go unconscious. However, we can stay conscious while the body relaxes. One way of doing that is to have somebody else guiding us, speaking to us, keeping our attention. So as the hypnosis client, we're just lying and relaxing. We're we're not doing anything. We're just being quite passive. But we're listening to the instruction of the hypnotherapist or hypnotist. Hypnotherapist is a hypnotist who's specifically hypnotizing somebody for the purpose of therapy. Whereas a hypnotist is just somebody who hypnotizes somebody. And stage hypnosis, performance hypnosis, is quite different than hypnotherapy. The intention is different. And stage hypnosis and hypnosis in movies is very inaccurate. As I say, hypnosis is not mind control. You are aware. You are aware while you're hypnotized. You're just in a state where you don't feel that resistant. You don't feel like you have a lot of desire to do anything in particular. But the subconscious mind is protective. If you hear something that goes against your grain, that's something that you don't want to do, you'll either resist it or you will come out of hypnosis. And when you're in hypnosis, you can come out of it at any time. But again, it just feels good, and you think, why bother? Why bother? It's very similar to when you're waking up in the morning and it just feels so good just to lie there and relax. There's this wonderful feeling of heaviness, of softness, and a state of consciousness that you just want to kind of drift and savor. So that's what you feel when you're in hypnosis. There's varying degrees of hypnosis. There's varying depths of hypnosis. And another common state of hypnosis is road hypnosis. So when you're driving and you might suddenly realize, wow, how did I get here? Or this has been a really quick drive. There's a kind of time distortion that can happen with hypnosis. So you've been awake, you've been attentive to what you need to do in driving, but you were in a slightly altered state of consciousness because, one, your body doesn't really have to do much. You can relax. Maybe it's warm and comfy in the car. And your eyes are fixed often on the road, maybe on the lines or the divider on the road. You might be keeping your eyes fixed. And so that combination of body relax and eye fixation will lead to hypnosis. There's a number of ways that we can get into hypnosis. There's a number of techniques. They don't all involve necessarily relaxation, but the focus is important. So again, the hypnotherapist or the hypnotist is keeping the client's mind focused by telling them what to think about, telling them what to focus on. And usually that is a kind of affirmation about relaxation and about directing the mind in a specific way. So there's a number of techniques that are used in hypnosis to guide the client into this special state. And it's actually quite effortless for the client. It's just like following a river, getting into a river in a boat and letting that current take you. Because hypnosis is a very natural state. We pass through this state when we wake up in the morning and when we're going to sleep at night. Anybody can be hypnotized because it's really just moving into a bandwidth of frequency that the brain produces when there is this attention combined with relaxation. And as I have said several times, there's qualities to this state that make it unique. We can induce a very similar state in meditation, but in meditation, usually the attention is fixed on one specific thing, whereas in hypnosis, it can be guided to be focused on different things. So one thing and then another thing, focus on your breath. Now pay attention to the sensation of the air on your skin. Now notice the feeling in your belly. Now use your ears and listen for whatever you can hear. And now imagine you're a bird flying through the sky, right? So a hypnotherapist will paint a picture and guide the client through different techniques and scenarios. So it all depends on what the intent is. As I say, if it was just for relaxation, a hypnotherapist could easily do that, could just help a person get into relaxation, and then even once the client is in that deeply relaxed state, give them some suggestions that whenever they want to, they can relax easily. Maybe they give them a trigger word. Maybe they say, whenever you think of the word relax, you relax easily and effortlessly. Maybe they make it more elaborate. So when you close your eyes and you imagine the word in red or blue or something like that, when you imagine this specific thing, it will trigger this deep state of relaxation. And this is what hypnotherapists often will do, is lead somebody into this deeply relaxed state, this expanded awareness, and then give them a suggestion and invite them to accept this suggestion. Again, that's important because the mind will only accept things that are palatable to it. It does have its defenses. It's not vulnerable or a victim to suggestion. So the hypnotherapist is aligned with the client in wanting the best for them, wanting what the client is wanting. And so the hypnotherapist will craft some suggestions suitable to that client's intent. Now, these deeper parts of the mind are more fertile. They are at a deeper level, a more fundamental level of our consciousness. And so this is where our deep-seated beliefs are, and also where we can integrate new ideas and beliefs that will have a more profound effect than if we receive them or think about them on just a conscious level. See, one of the reasons why we might experience the effects of trauma many years down the line is because trauma affects the deep levels of our consciousness. When we're traumatized, it is the deep parts of our consciousness that are most impacted. And the subconscious holds on to a much greater amount of information, a much vaster amount of details. And it uses that to preemptively protect us from future harm. Normally, all of this information would overwhelm our conscious mind, and that's why it is kept in the subconscious. But the subconscious can pick up erroneous logic, erroneous ideas. For example, if you were a child and your interpretation of the world was a certain way, and your interpretation was that you are bad, there's something wrong with you, even though that may not have been what the adult version of you would have interpreted from the events, that child version of you did interpret it that way because of the limited scope of the conscious mind at that time. However, that impression is recorded in the subconscious mind and stays with us. And often the only way to change that is to have an impressionable experience that reaches as deep as that initial one. So this is why things like ayahuasca and breath work and mushroom trips are what people are using, because they take people to that deep level of the mind and introduce a more compelling, an equally or more compelling new revised concept. Hypnosis does the very same thing, but in my opinion, in a more intentional way. If you just take ayahuasca and blast every part of yourself, who knows what will happen? It's just kind of a haphazard approach, in my opinion. Unless it's done in a very intentional way. I've never done ayahuasca, so I don't know how intentional it is. I'm not sure just some shamanic singing and rattling is going to revise those belief systems without nuking the whole psyche, which it seems to me is maybe what's happening. I think that hypnotherapy is a much gentler approach, and yeah, there's no vomiting, and you can be quite precise with it. So crafting a new statement, belief that is very targeted at what is wanting to be achieved. As I said, with this intention of wanting to relax, there can be an affirmation. Even the client can come up with the affirmation themselves. Hypnotherapists are good at coming up with these things. That's part of the practice. But they usually do it by listening to the client and using their words and formulate something that really resonates with that client. So maybe this client is triggered by something. Maybe they're really worried about something. Whenever they hear about climate change, they get really anxious and they can't sleep, perhaps. So that hypnotherapist might give them an affirmation once they're in this deeply peaceful, relaxed state. that the hypnotherapist has helped them to get into, then the hypnotherapist says maybe something like, are you willing to update your response to certain things? Maybe the hypnotherapist says, nod your head if you're willing to update your belief systems or your triggers. And the client nods, and then the hypnotherapist says, I'd like you to install this new frame of reference, this new belief, this new idea, that whenever you hear a suggestion about climate change, it really won't bother you. You'll have a sense of peace and trust that things will work out, that this earth has survived for millennia, and that it's easy to get hyped up about these things, but it's not going to bother you anymore. There's much more enjoyable things to think about, and so you easily brush that thought aside. It doesn't weigh on you. You make choices in your life that give you peace of mind, and allowing yourself to put that in a box, be able to put it aside whenever it comes up without disruption. Do you accept this new response to that stimulus? Get the client to nod their head. Yes, they do accept that new response to stimulus. And then the hypnotherapist can maybe repeat that or can continue to build on that and emphasize that that is the new belief, that's the new framework within the mind. And then the session ends with bringing the client out of that state. So this is like reprogramming a computer. Our mind does run on programs. There are beliefs which are made of thoughts that we continue to think. Most everyone knows that with some observation that we do have these looping thoughts, and we do tend to repeat our behaviors. Even when we want to change them, we can find it very difficult to do so. Many people are plagued with addiction, and even though that addiction causes them great suffering, they feel powerless to change. And that's because willpower alone is not enough. Conscious thoughts, I shouldn't do this, I don't want to do this, are not enough. It requires going to the depth of where that thought initially was placed in the subconscious mind. That belief that this is something that I want to do. Smoking cigarettes makes me look cool. I'm an adult if I smoke. I fit in. I get my sense of belonging when I smoke. These are the kind of subconscious beliefs that get implanted in our mind at young ages. 30 years later, we might not even remember, likely not even remember what we were thinking at the time, when we were feeling anxious, when we were feeling alone, when we were feeling sad, and we tapped into something that gave us a little bit of relief. And that impressed upon our mind. Whenever we're feeling heightened emotions, extreme sadness, extreme joy, any extreme emotion, all of the data that we're observing, which includes a lot of things that we're not even consciously observing, the subconscious mind takes in a much vaster amount of data. When we're experiencing that heightened emotion, all of that data in that moment is gathered by the subconscious mind and formed into an association packet, an impression of something important to us. And it continues to live within the subconscious mind, affecting our thoughts and our behaviors for the rest of our life. So this is why it's very important to excavate and to know the deeper parts of our mind. As I've said in previous videos, I believe that meditation is probably the best way of revising, of updating, of healing these deeper parts of the mind. It's a kind of shadow work, as is hypnotherapy. We're going into the shadowy recesses of the mind and excavating things and updating old programs. So it's always a part of a hypnotherapist's work to address misconceptions about hypnosis, because it's important that the client feel safe, feel at ease, feel positive about the experience. So that is one of my intentions with this video. I probably just skirted around it a little bit, but because it's kind of I think that my emphasis is on the benefits of it, because I don't really see negatives to it. We're told to dispense with the fears, which I think are erroneous things. They come from movies or something, that it's mind control. But it's not at all. It's not, you don't go away, you don't go somewhere else. It's just like being very relaxed and very comfortable, and also very insightful, very tuned in, very dialed in. So there's nothing bad about it. There's really nothing negative about it. Because even, say, for example, if a hypnotherapist tried to implant a negative idea, that would not work unless somehow there were already negative ideas that were aligned with that. So somebody that had some kind of mental inversion, then I suppose that could be built upon. And that's kind of the domain of things like MK Ultra, which they do utilize hypnosis techniques, but alongside trauma. And that's definitely not what I'm talking about, and I'm not interested in that at all. That's quite evil and abusive. I want to teach people how to heal themselves, how to become better, how to become wiser, more insightful, more spiritual. And to me, what spiritual means is knowing yourself, knowing your soul, knowing spirit, and that is found in the deeper parts of the mind and in quiet self-reflection. Thanks for watching.